Hey everybody, this is John from Anglers Covey, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Bug of the Month. It's actually a beautiful winter day today, and we're coming to you today talking to you about midges. That's right, midges. What they lack for in size, they certainly make up for in numbers. Midges are by far one of the most important food sources in a trout's diet, especially here in Colorado, especially here on these tailwaters. So midges are actually kind of the only thing available through the winter months or the colder months. Midges will hatch when there's very little warming in those water temperatures. In fact, we should see some pretty good midge hatches today. One thing to think about here is you want to fish midges year round. So it's not just important in the winter. This is a bug that you want to pay attention to year round. We're going to talk to you today about all the stages of the insect and where to fish them, how to fish them, and give you some tips along the way. So let's get started. So midges, there's actually 4 life stages of a midge. We're going to start with an egg, to a larva, to a pupa, and then to an adult. So we want to focus on basically 3 of those stages. It's really hard to focus on the egg stage of a midge because they're pretty much microscopic. But the larva is kind of where we're going to start. And you know, we're here on the river before any hatches or anything's really happening. So this is when I'm going to focus on midge larva. And when I'm doing that, I can fish midge larvae all over the river in many different types of water. But where I'm going to start with that is in kind of the deeper, slower water. And this is really kind of characteristic of where fish are going to be, especially in the winter. They're going to be in slower water, deeper water, and they're not going to expend much energy. Now, they're more apt to eat and see those midge larvae in those types of water. So we're going to check out some water like that, fishing midge larvae. So my rigging for this, it's going to be pretty simple. I'm going to use maybe a 9-foot leader and then either use my blood knot, triple surgeon's knot, or a tippet ring. And then I'm going to put off a tag of about 16 to 18 inches of 5X tippet. I'm going to tie a fly onto there, and I can actually tie 3 flies if I wanted to. Oftentimes when I'm fishing midge larvae in the mornings or later in the evenings, I like to put an attractor on there, so it could be an egg pattern or a leech, a zertle, anything like that, where it's going to help those flies get down and maybe even entice some of those bigger fish in the run to eat that bigger food source. And I also like to mix up my flies, so I'm not going to fish the same color midge larva throughout my system here. I might have a red one. Red's one of my favorite colors for midge larvae, and when you harvest them in the water, you're going to see a ton of red ones, so it kind of tells you that red's important. The other colors I like are like olives, creams, light brown, and even straight black. The thing with midge larvae is I've seen them in every color under the rainbow. I've actually even seen blue midge larvae. So kind of the sky's the limit there. Be really creative and switch those things up, and you will find something that they're keyed in on. I have this nice big deep run here, and this is where I'm going to actually throw some larvae through here. So just depending on the speed of the water and the depth is going to dictate how much weight and how much distance I put between an indicator and my fly. So just going to start out, I think I've made that determination here. I'm going to start at the head of the hole and really just bomb some drifts out here. The one thing to think about though, when you are in softer and slower water, is your drifts actually have to be even more perfect than normal. Any little movement in your mending or overcorrection like that is actually going to have a drastic effect on those flies. So I like to really think of dead drifts here. As soon as my flies hit, or when I cast out here, I'm going to do all my correction, all my mending right there, and then I'm just going to kind of let it ride. I don't want to keep mending it through the drift. And so while I'm not getting really long drifts, the drifts I am getting are perfect. So I'll work through this hole in increments. I'll move down or up just a foot, a step or so, and then kind of keep doing the same thing. So again, I want to be really thorough. Thoroughness is kind of one of the most important things when I'm nymphing. So I want to be really thorough with all my drifts and work all sides of the river. What's close to me, middle, and far. set it up in a grid and just kind of pick it apart. So after a pretty cold start this morning, I've started to notice that there's some midges flying around now, which tells me that there's a pretty good hatch going. So I'm going to actually move into some different type of water, some more transition water. I'm still going to fish a midge larva, but I'm also going to add a pupa or an emerger at this stage too, see what they want to eat. So we had this nice little bow, just moved up into this transition water, and judging by what he ate here, he's starting to eat emergers or pupa. This little bow on a blindside midge. So now we're going to talk a little bit about the pupating or emergent stage of these midges. Now this is a stage that I absolutely love to fish. I actually love to fish that stage in all the insects that we cover here in the rivers. But this is an important stage. This will kind of turn the fish on. When those bugs start to pupate, they will move into prime feeding lies and absolutely just gorge on them. And it's funny, they'll move into really shallow, riffly water, a lot like they do when they're eating emerging mayflies or even emerging caddis. So today we're right at the top of this big long riffle here, and we're going to try to see if we have some of these fish feeding at the very top of it on these pupa.
Yeah.
So what I'm looking for here, this is the top of this riffle here. I'm actually, wherever I want to fish out there, I'm going to get all my length out well away from the fish so I don't spook anything. Once I do that, I'm going to start real close here. Just do some nice high sticks right at the top of this riffle. Take a couple steps in and move a little closer to the center of the river. One thing to note here, we often talk about how in nymphing, one of the most important things is depth and weight. And in a situation like this, weight is important. And in fact, we want to be on the lower side of that weight. So if I'm throwing a nymph rig out here, there's too much weight, it's going to get stuck on everything, and I'm not going to get an effective grip through there. So it may take you a little bit of time to adjust that when you get to that riffle, but you want to fish pretty light here. By fishing light too, I'm going to keep those bugs with a lot of movement like they would be if they were actually pupating. Another thing about that too is always err on the side of too little weight when you're fishing riffles like this. Fish have a tendency to feed up, but they won't feed down. So even if you're a little lighter and you're coming across just the top of their heads, they're still going to pop up and eat that bug. As you can see, That happened on probably the 25th drift, so again, you want to be nice and thorough here. This is faster water too. I like to keep a pretty hard upstream angle. That'll keep the fish kind of parallel with me. If I come outside of that angle, I'm going to let him turn his head and run down river, and then it can kind of get bananas. You can see I dropped back out of the hole I caught this fish in. Because I think there's some more feeding fish in there. So if I get them out of the hole, then I'm not going to spook the rest of those feeders. And generally I can go in there and just catch the rest of those fish that are in there feeding. As you can see by being really thorough in those riffles there, you know, sure enough, this is the result. And I like to, it's almost kind of like a spidey sense, you know. We talk about that as guides a lot, like you know there's fish there, and I think that keeps you more inclined to fish it a little longer than you maybe normally would. But that's something very valuable I've learned over the years, is to be very, very thorough in my drifts. We're gonna let this girl go here. Thanks for playing. And I'm using just a really basic indicator rig here. So I have a butt section with just some 4X actually going down about 5 feet. And then I have 5X going off there. I have 2 emerging or pupating midges here, and just 1 single small split shot. And this is about a rig I would fish in, you know, a couple feet of water. So just because you have all that length there, I can kind of back it off with less weight here and keep it up in that water column. The benefit of having a longer leader like this is your flies are really going to go where the river wants them to. So when it's shorter, it's harder to control, and actually your flies will drift a little stiffer. With this, they kind of just roam around wherever in that run that they need to, and that oftentimes is the key to getting a fish to eat them. All right, we've started to see quite a few midges hatching today, and you know, midges are small, so sometimes it can be hard to see them hatching. One of the big keys I always look for, especially if there's snow on the ground, is look on the side of the bank. You'll see a lot of adult midges in the snow, and that's certainly something that we saw today. So if you see that snow on the bank, look at it. You see those midges in there, and that's also a really good way to kind of see their general size and their coloration. That can give you a little bit more intel in the nymphs that you're fishing. We do fish these as adults too. It just takes a whole lot of fish eating on top for us to actually fish them. I always carry a couple really good dry fly patterns in that adult midge stage. I like a Griffith's gnat, and I love the Matt's midge. I'll have these on me, and if I'm seeing a pot of fish really feeding heavily on those adults, I can switch up and fish to those adults at that time. I will tell you this though, the midge hatches, in terms of the adults and fish feeding on them, they're pretty short-lived, so I'd recommend having a rod rigged up and dedicated just for that adult midge. All right, everybody, thank you for joining us today for Bug of the Month, where we were talking about midges. And again, very small food source, but it's very, very important. We hope you enjoyed all the information in today's video, and if you ever have questions, be sure to come into the shop, give us a call, or drop a comment below. Until next time.